Welcome to the second half draft show. We're on site in Mobile. I'm sure, as you know, 2023 Senior Bowl coverage from Couch Potato General Manager. The second half draft show, obviously brought to you by Couch Potato General Manager. I have Headley and Drew. It's the first time that we've actually been together on the second half draft show for the lives. I know historically, for those of you who are familiar with the channel, I've been around for an extended period of time. We used to do everything on location. Obviously, things change, but we're obviously together here in Mobile covering the Senior Bowl. The practices are in the books. We've spent a lot of time not only at the practices live, interviewing the players, evaluating what's taking place on the field, but also rewatching the practices in the comfort of the Airbnb. Shout out Airbnb. You know what I'm saying? Sponsor, plug. um, but we've had an opportunity to look at the practices again, really diagnose it, rewind, move forward, just as we would do with any game film. So with that being said, we've established an all Senior Bowl team, actually a first and second team for both offense and defense for the Senior Bowl. Really excited to share it with you guys and give you some more insight in terms of the players' performances and ultimately why we made the decision to include those respective players into these all Senior Bowl teams. With that being said, there's going to be a lot more Senior Bowl coverage to come. All right, it's not limited to this. We really like to take advantage of the Senior Bowl because football is being played, right? Whereas the national media, they will turn their attention to the combine, and of course the combine is very exciting because of the 40-yard dash and all of the pomp and circumstance associated with that. But the Senior Bowl gives you an opportunity to get a look at a lot of prospects within a very condensed amount of time, a controlled environment, not necessarily controlled environment, but for our purposes as draft analysts, a controlled environment, and they're actually playing football, right? It's live. You know what I mean? Of course, they try players not always going all the way down to the ground, but that's typically how practices are conducted as is. So really great opportunity. Really enjoyed it. And let's unveil these first and second all Senior Bowl teams for the 2023 cycle. All right.
Do it.
And right at the top, we have the quarterbacks. And Jake Haener of Fresno State is representing the first team. And Max Duggan is representing the second team, quarterback from TCU. So I ask you, gentlemen. Shout out Mike, Larry there. Salute, fellas. Phil, you appreciate it, Mike. I asked you guys, right? Ultimately, why did you decide Haener, Duggan, respectively, first and second team?
About consistency. I mean, when it comes down to it, you're playing for a team and players that you're not familiar with for the most part. You're in a new city that you most players haven't played in, and you get your playbook, a couple weeks, and it just watching those quarterbacks. First of all, let me say this: the quarterbacks in general wasn't good.
Yeah,
it wasn't good.
Yeah,
just point blank. Period.
Overall performance was lackluster.
It wasn't good.
Sure.
And the thing is first day, it's like, all right, you know what? Got it. Getting comfortable, getting familiar. Second day, got it. Third day, it was just it didn't look good. You know what I mean? Even in the one-on-ones with the DBs and wide receivers, no pressure coming. We got balls that are dropping to the ground, but these were the guys that did the best, in our opinion, in terms of just being consistent, getting the ball out and getting it to the receivers so they could do their.
He just didn't take the shots. And when Haener got in there, he was confident. It seemed like the team rallied around. The receivers were ready to get the ball. The ball was coming out. So I thought Haener had the best week out of all the quarterbacks. Max Duggan on the second team, I thought he started pretty good, but I thought he faded as he went along. So, but it was really not good quarterback play. I don't think, but I know none of these guys are going to be first-round picks. Probably not second-round picks either. They probably day three. They probably day three guys.
Second, fourth round.
Yeah.
When Jim Nagy was talking about the quarterbacks for these guys, and I know some people want to hold me accountable, and that's okay.
You gotta hold yourself accountable.
I gotta hold myself accountable. I can do that myself. With Jaron Hall, thought he was going to be a first-round pick. Thought this was an opportunity for him to raise his stock, and it didn't happen, man. Just wouldn't get the ball out. It was frustrating to watch. And again, I understand it. Everything is unfamiliar to you, but he just couldn't get the ball out in time. And it wasn't pretty, man. Although when he was throwing it to Puka, You know what I'm saying?
That's his
He
boy.
did lose
Boy.
Puka. He did lose Puka
He
after the first practice. I think that may have had some of an impact on Jaren Hall, but I thought his performance, to your point, was disappointing. I think we all expected more out of him. I think this was a great opportunity to really bolster his draft stock because there's question marks. There's question marks after the first few prospects. We got guys that are kind of in that boom or bust range. Two guys we feel really confident about: Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Excuse me. We obviously like what Anthony Richardson represents as far as his ceiling is concerned. We have more question marks about Will Levis, and again, there'll be a lot of conversation around Will Levis. I was showing you guys before we went on the live that he was being interviewed and he was asked, are you the best quarterback in the class? And he indicated that he is. He was demonstrating that he's confident in his ability, whatever the case may be. But I thought what he said at the end of that brief conversation that we saw was interesting, saying that he'd do everything in his power, ultimately, whatever he needs to do in order to prove that. And he didn't show up in Mobile. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that is a missed opportunity. We've had, I think, since 2016, I think this would be probably the first year since 2016 that there isn't a first round selection at the quarterback position from the Senior Bowl.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And he could have very well been that player.
Yep.
He could have very well been that player, especially considering that, as you mentioned, the quarterback play wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination. So we move on to the running back position. And Tyjae Spears of Tulane, I'm sure if you haven't seen it already, I'm sure you will. We had that competitive where they got the whole team around and trying to get everybody juiced up, and he made a move on a linebacker for in the passing drills, whatever the case may be, and that went viral. So you may have seen that, but Spears did a lot from start to finish. He really has performed at a very high level. And then of course Kenny McIntosh from Georgia. Why Spears in Georgia in terms of these Senior Bowl all practice teams?
Man, I watched Spears tape at Tulane, and it was impressive. The burst, the ability to get to the second level. And you look at him, you're like, okay, maybe it's the competition that he's playing.
Mm-hmm.
But then you saw him against USC, totally took that game over in the bowl game.
Yeah.
And then in Senior Bowl week, he just showed some more of it. He just showed the juice. He was running at a different speed than a lot of these guys, and also what he did in the passing game. Catching passes, breaking guys off on the routes. So he has to be running back one. I thought he was one of the most impressive players out of all positions at the Senior Bowl. And then with Kenny McIntosh, it was just the pass protecting. A lot of running backs struggle. Alvin Pace and Henley and those guys coming at him, they couldn't block him up. And Kenny McIntosh, took him and anchored himself and
use his hands.
Use his hands, man.
His technique.
And that's what he's going to be doing at the next level, catching the football, protecting third downs. That's
I'll get him on the field. It'll get him on the field ultimately. There's some impressive ball carriers that showed up here in Mobile, but they struggled.
Yeah.
They struggled to pass protect. And if
Eric
at the end, Eric Gray, Chase
bad.
Brown, earlier on, he improved. He certainly made some strides as the week went on, but he certainly had his struggles. A lot of backs just did not look comfortable. Eric Gray in particular was disappointing in that facet. He looked great with the ball in his hands. Yeah, absolutely. But he you don't get to see his full potential if you can't get on the field. Right. And to get on the field, you have to demonstrate that you're not a liability in pass pro. That has derailed more than one career, and it'll continue to derail careers at that particular position until you get it situated. So he has some work to do, without question, definitely. So we have Tyjae Spears there, Kenny McIntosh among the running backs, first and second team, all practice teams, Senior Bowl all practice teams. As far as Couch Potato general manager is concerned, then we have the receivers. Okay, of course, people love the one-on-ones. Be sure to check that out on the channel. That's Couch Potato general manager. Like, subscribe, comment. We love to interact with you guys. Michael Wilson of Stanford, Jaden Reed, Michigan State, Nathaniel Tank Dell, the nation leader in receiving yards from Houston, put on a show. And then on the second team, some names that I'm sure you recognize. Wasn't Michael Wilson. I'm actually missing that name. So that is a faux pas on my behalf as far as this graphic is concerned. But we have Rashee Rice, Jonathan Mingo, and the third receiver, Trey Palmer from Nebraska. So you see Michael Wilson there twice. That should be Trey Palmer on the second team offense. Let's talk about those players. Let's start with the first team as far as Wilson, Reed, and Tank Dell.
Michael Wilson's on there twice. You know why?
First and second team.
He balled, man. His ability to separate. He's a very intelligent player. We did an interview with him, asking him questions, and obviously he's from Stanford, so there's some level of intellect there. But when you hear him speak, man, it's different. It's different than most of the players that we talk to in terms of his preparation, the way he thinks about things. I mean, he's willing to go back to high school to study the player that he's playing against. We asked him about, hey, who do you model your game after? Who did you like growing up? This man's talking about Stevie Johnson, route runner. Keenan Allen, route runner.
Yeah.
Hines Ward, old school. You know what I'm saying? Grimy, route runner. So, he understands it, right? And he's being trained by TJ Houshmandzadeh. What was the
Houshmandzadeh?
Yeah, Houshmandzadeh.
Yeah.
Y'all know about
Championship. Lock it up.
Google it, YouTube it. It's funny. It's a good commercial. But yeah, man, he's just different, man. He's missed 17 games in his career in college. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot. I think he's missed more games than he's played in his college career.
Right.
So somebody's going to get a gem when they draft him. And we asked him what are coaches, scouts, NFL, execs saying, hey, what is it that they're telling you about yourself? He says they just want to see me play. Right. You missed that many games. That's kind of what it is. I want to see you play. What does that look like?
Right.
And lights, camera, action. He couldn't be stopped, man. There was no corner that could stop him, man. None. It was beautiful.
Yeah, man. The how he breaks on his routes. It just his hip fluidity, man. He just gets separation. And it was time after time after time. He was doing his teammate Caillou Kelly out there. So Michael Wilson, I think he came in maybe as a day 3 pick. I think he's day 2 now. He's a day 2 guy. I know you mentioned, Christian Watson, how he did at Senior Bowl last season, and his claim to fame there. So, I think Michael Wilson's on that same path. Jaden Reed, I thought he won one-on-ones all day long. The route running, the quickness, the speed, and his ability to catch contested catches as well, man. Nice. He checks all the boxes. And then Tank Dell was he's only 165. The weight, some teams might take him off the board. He might be too small, but he gets open time after time after time. So he's another guy. He didn't participate day 3, but
he didn't need to.
No, I don't think
he didn't need to.
But was he the one? We had this discussion with Jake, who's a friend of the show.
Absolutely.
He was listening to some podcasts, and they were relating him to. Was it him that they related to Antonio Brown, or was that?
No, that was somewhere else. That came from somewhere else.
Okay, I just want to make sure. But he was nasty too, man. He was uncoverable too. I think he created a little bit more separation.
Oh yeah.
Than Michael Wilson, but yeah, man, it was nasty.
It was really impressive to see Wilson because obviously he's a bigger player, right? The way he was able to snap off those routes and create separation at the top of his route without physicality, just pure route running. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I thought when I saw that, I was like, whoa. Yeah. He moves differently. But as far as Tank Dell is concerned, easy explosiveness. It's a smooth acceleration, decelerate. It's everything looks the same. You know what I'm saying? So you got to get on your horse. You got to get on your horse to protect against the 9. And then, of course, he creates 8 yards of separation on a comeback. You know what I mean? Whether he's going to the post, you know what I'm saying? The double move, the post corner, whatever the case may be, it's hard. It's hard. I did notice that he struggled with a solid jam, but very, very rarely were the DBs confident enough to actually come up and press him because of that speed, that elusiveness, that acceleration. So really, really impressive performance by him. And as you mentioned, after day 2, somebody got in his ear. I would imagine, an agent or whomever said, you've done enough. You've done enough. Let's go on and put on 10 pounds. You know what I'm saying? So we can go weigh in at this combine, dispel some concerns and move forward. So yeah, really impressive stuff from those receivers. On the second team, you got Rashee Rice, Trey Palmer, as I mentioned, and Jonathan Mingo. I'm a big fan of Rashee Rice and Mingo. We were really intrigued by what Trey Palmer could do, and I thought he impressed. By the way, as you guys get into those second team receivers here on the All Senior Bowl practice teams for Couch Potato General Manager, we're building it while we fly it. All right. I don't like the lighting. I don't like the lighting. Right. So while you guys get into that, I'm gonna address the lighting.
You too dark, bro?
No. I'm good. You guys are too dark. So I'm gonna take care of that. But let our folks let our listeners know what you thought about those 3 receivers.
Rashee Rice, I thought day 2 kind of had a up and down uneven performance. Drew spoke to him before the practices. I told him he was his wide receiver 1. I thought, you kind of messed him up out there, man. You got in his head.
Yeah, I did.
You know what I'm saying?
My bad. My bad.
He came back day 3, man, dominated, got, physical, used his hands, created the separation. We love Rashee Rice here. Jonathan Mingo, I thought the release from Mingo was impressive. The physicality at the top of his routes. He also got deep, beat a couple guys, and Trey Palmer, Mr. Hezzy. That's why I call him, because he sets defenders up. You never know what he's going to run. I think he's going to be a great slot receiver at the next level.
Yeah, when you talk about Mingo, I was, I watched the tape and I wasn't really impressed in terms of watching the tape. I know that was a lot of people like him, and everybody has their opinion in terms of what they see on the tape. And I'm just like, all right, I guess he's going to have to show me something, you know what I mean? And he's consistent in terms of, like you said, his release, his ability to win at the top of the route. There's many ways to do it, to get open, and he has his way, and that's being physical, and I like it, you know what I mean? And then he's got the strong hands. And in terms of Rashee Rice, man, listen, he has to be physical because day 2 it was kind of like I'm gonna try something different. I'm not sure what he was thinking, but it didn't work out. Somebody got in his ear and said, "Yo, are you that guy that we thought you could be?" You know what I'm saying? Because to me, when I watch him on tape, man, he kind of reminds me. I'm not saying he's this guy. I'm just saying in terms of his mentality is like a Steve Smith, bro. You know what I'm saying? Now when I talked to him, it was a little bit lighter than that, because I did interview him and did ask him some questions. But yeah, man, he has to have that. That's a part of who he is in terms of when he's on the field, man. So when he doesn't have that, he's a different player, completely different player.
We got a comment here from Sports and Debates, and he's asking, why is Michael Wilson on both? It's because he was that good. No. That was a mistake. That should be Trey Palmer on the second team. Yeah. Michael Wilson certainly on the first team, Trey Palmer on the second team, along with Rashee Rice and Jonathan Mingo. And I want to unpack that a little bit more, what you mentioned regarding Rashee Rice. Watching Rashee Rice, right, doing my film study on him, the thing that jumped out to me is his competitive edge and his physicality. And even first day, he had a good first day, don't get me wrong, but even first day, it just kind of looked like he was going through the motions for whatever reason. The second day, he just wasn't engaged, right? And he allowed defensive backs to out-muscle him, which I had not seen on tape. I know there were some challenges, or rather some areas to improve as far as his route running, becoming a bit more precise, not flattening out routes correctly in certain instances, giving the DB an opportunity to get back into the play because he's not stacking them. A number of different circumstances that resulted in some incompletions, right, or some inconsistency on his behalf as far as the route running was concerned, but never the play demeanor. That never came up in the film. And for whatever reason, I'm not sure what was going on. Those first couple of days, he just wasn't as dialed in. Day 3, he looked like himself. He righted the ship, and he certainly looked like himself. Payne Durham, as Sports and Debates indicates here, he had a huge day 3, and I think it vaulted him into the first team, all Senior Bowl practice team here for Couch Potato general manager, and then of course the very, very talented Luke Musgrave from Oregon State ended up on the second team. What were your thoughts on their performance during practice?
Durham, I'm not. That's.
Yeah,
that's
it was day 3, man. It was those 11 on 11s and his ability to stretch the defense, make contested catches. He caught one a touchdown. I think his helmet popped off. Yeah. He just got physical. And then when we went back and watched the practices of the tape, he was winning one-on-ones too, man. He gets open quickly, a big target for the quarterback, not afraid to go across the middle. So I think, Payne Durham's a name to watch. And then Luke Musgrave, he only played in 2 games. He was a guy that, I was anticipating seeing because we only got 2 games in his senior season. He got hurt, a knee injury, but he came back. I thought it was a little rusty day 1, but day 2, day 3, he started opening it up, beating guys deep. He's one of those vertical guys. You could think of like a Dallas Goedert,
working that seam.
What Mike Gesicki maybe could have been. Just a tall, fast tight end that could, you don't want him blocking. No. You don't want him blocking. We saw that on tape also. He's like a receiver playing tight end. Gotcha.
Masquerading. I hear you that. We got a question here from Carl. Are there any second round gems at wideout for the Texans?
I mean,
Michael Wilson.
Michael Wilson.
The big question mark. The big question mark with Michael Wilson is the health, right? Yeah. He missed 16, 17 games over the last 3 seasons. I think a couple seasons where he played 6 games, 1 season where he played 4. Right? There's a lack of production, and of course, you don't want to get too in the weeds regarding production. Of course, you'd like to see it. You like to see the production, but ultimately it's the traits that most NFL teams are looking for. Are they transferable? Can he play at a high level, a high enough level, at the highest level of the game, right? And I think he certainly has the ability. So that will dispel that aspect of it, right? It's about being available. It's about being available. And I think he's had some bad luck. You guys mentioned it, the way he prepares, his approach to the game, and then of course his physical ability, the way it all marries up. There's a very talented player there, you know, and if he checks out medically, everything is a green light, and then he certainly looked like he was fine during the Senior Bowl practices. I think he certainly has a chance. I think he certainly has a chance to be in that second round. I don't know that Rashee Rice did enough to force his way into the first round. I'll be honest with you.
I agree.
I don't know that. So I think you might be getting him probably where most people already had him. But considering what I think he can be, I think what we think he can be, that probably would be a gem. And on day 2 as well, there's a couple guys. There's a few guys that I think certainly could find their way to find their way into that second round and make an impact for the Houston Texans or any NFL team. So be sure to check out those one-on-ones on the channel. That's Couch Potato General Manager. If you're really interested in seeing how those receivers performed, and of course we'll have more coming out in the coming weeks here as far as how these guys perform. All right. We move on to the offensive line, the most important position group on the NFL roster. We had some question marks. We had some question marks with the likes of a Matthew Bergeron and Jalen Duncan. Those are your first and second team, all Senior Bowl, all practice team left tackles, respectively. They answered those questions.
Yeah. We had some videos, prior to the Senior Bowl. Asking specific questions and putting these guys in specific categories. And Duncan was, I can't remember what category he was in for me.
Most improved, maybe.
No, not most improved. It was maybe, I can't remember. Just check out the video in terms of the Senior Bowl videos. But Duncan, biggest concern from him in terms of just being consistent. When he puts it all together, it's over. For whoever's across from him, it's a wrap. And he did that time in, and it didn't matter who it was across from him. He did that, right? I spoke to him. He was talking about, hey, they had him playing a little bit of right tackle. They kind of mixed things up at the Senior Bowl, got guys in different positions. Want to see what that looks like, right? But he's saying, hey, the one thing that they told me is I need to work, on my run game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying get my hands where they need to be. But in terms of pass pro, I thought he was outstanding. And then you talk about Matthew Bergeron, who our biggest concern from him was one being consistent in terms of
how do you deal with length?
Yeah.
And athleticism?
Falski and Mark Murphy kind of got him in the season.
Yeah,
so.
right.
Jared Verse got him a little bit. Yeah.
And he was outstanding too. You know what I mean? It didn't matter who was kind of across from him. He was, he was able to handle whatever came his way. I think he handles power very well. Being able to drop the anchor and take on, all comers. But he did very well. So, those two guys, I'm like, man, I gotta clap it up for them boys.
Yeah, they made it look easy at times. You could clearly see that they've done the work.
Yep.
Whatever coaching between the last game we saw them in college football to now, you could see that they've put in the work, and that light bulb, the proverbial light bulb, has kind of gone off for those players. So I thought they were really impressive. We moved to the right tackle position, and Dawan Jones, big Dawan Jones. He's a first team right tackle after one practice. That's all he needed to kind of cement himself, and I think he probably has played his way right into the first round, all things considered. And then Darnell Wright from Tennessee, a guy that has really helped himself. I think coming into the 2022 season, he was probably a day 3 candidate, and he's likely to go relatively early in day 2 now. With all things considered, based on how he performed in season, Tennessee, of course, had a great season, and of course, punctuating it here in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. So, Headley, your thoughts on Jones? Where did you have him before you came in to this week? We only got one practice from him. Where'd you have him? Where is he now for you? And then, of course, a little bit on Darnell Wright.
Yeah, I had him maybe late second, early third round.
Mm-hmm.
But after watching the Senior Bowl that one day, he could be early second round, maybe a first round prospect now, because offensive line, like you said, is the most important position group. Man, you need these guys to run the football, protect your quarterback, and both of these guys are physical football players. Dawan Jones, he got that arm length also. He could stab somebody, just like Darnell Wright. He likes that right stab. And they can move for being so big. That's the thing, man. You're not supposed to be that big and be able to move that efficiently. So both of those guys on the right side was just dominant all week long.
Jones impressed me with his pad level. Yeah. Being that big, that tends to be the concern, right? That you're going to be high. Guys are going to be able to get under you. You're not going to be able to sustain your blocks because you don't have leverage and so on and so forth. And I thought he did a really good job. You can, when a guy that big, right? You know what I'm saying? Particularly if he has any level of athleticism, you just kind of win because you're just physically more gifted, right? You were just blessed with more physical gifts, right? But it looked like he had some quality technique. In that one day, would have loved to see him more, but probably the right decision. You know what I'm saying? Keep it. You got guys like Isaiah Foskey who were trying to prove themselves. You know what I'm saying? Was really excited about facing him, and you don't want anything to go awry there. So Dawan Johnson, Dawan Jones solidifies himself in just one practice, and then of course Darnell Wright continues to bolster his draft stock. We move to the interior. And we have Cody Mauch from North Dakota State at left guard for the first team. Steve Avila, TCU. Yeah. Really impressive. Left guard for our second team. Let's talk about those two players.
So when you talk about Cody, no teeth Cody, that's
long hair, no teeth.
No teeth. Yeah.
That's the aesthetic.
Yeah,
that's the aesthetic right there.
He's nasty. He's about that life in terms of whoever you take on all comers. Strong, drops that anchor. They had him playing center, had him playing left guard, right guard, had him play a little bit of tackle. I don't think he should be playing tackle, but again, you're at the Senior Bowl. Let's see what it looks like. I don't think he was bad at it, but I think we all understand he's going to be inside, right? Whether it be center or guard. Moves very well. He is as advertised when you watch him on tape. He is that guy, right? And then you talk about Steve Avila, which I didn't know anything about this guy coming in. TCU, and obviously TCU ran the ball pretty good with Kendre Miller, who balled this season. Unfortunately, he got injured, and he was following behind Avila, who when we was kind of putting this team together, we're like, there's a guy out there that we might have to replace. So we're kind of thinking about it. Is he on the second team? That guy? He's on the second team, right? Okay,
he might be.
He might be. And we were kind of working it out. We're like watching the Senior Bowl practice tape. We're like, we can't do it. This guy is a statue. You're not moving him. You know what I mean? And he's wide too. When I look at Cody Boggan, I look at him. He's wide. He has a good frame, solid. And he's a good mover, man. He gets to that second level and do what he's supposed to do. So, yeah, man, he had a great week of practice.
Yeah, I thought it was real consistent with Avila. Like that, he dropped that anchor. Guys couldn't really bull rush him, and then he showed nastiness a couple of times when we were watching the tape. He's throwing guys on the floor once he stuffs them. So, you'd like to see that nastiness from that interior offensive lineman. So Moss and Avila both have that.
All right. Jake, our good friend Jake, who we actually got a chance to catch up with here in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, he makes mention here, he comments, Dawan Jones to KC at 30-31 might be in Penn. Said it might be in Penn. Considering how dominant he was. I mean, there's a question mark. There's a question mark at right tackle. They obviously traded for Orlando Brown, so they like their big, tall, difficult to get around tackles. You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't shock me by any stretch of the imagination. So something to think about there. Let's talk about the other guard position. Okay, O'Cyrus Torrence, as advertised, I think he was as consistent as any player here in Mobile. Solidified, in my mind, his first round billing. I'd be surprised if he does get out of the first round. I know the NFL typically doesn't put quite as much emphasis on the guard position, but as teams, things are cyclical, right? There's been so much outside zone for so long. As teams are now incorporating more power, gap principles. I think even though the run blocking may not necessarily be his calling card, he fits the bill. He has that body type. What he does in the phone booth as a pass protector is very impressive. So he's our first team right guard. And then McClinton Curtis, right, from Tennessee Chattanooga. He was incredibly impressive. The one-on-ones perhaps not, and one-on-ones are unique in that way, right? You're not going to win every rip. You're not going to pitch a shutout typically. in the one-on-ones. But I thought when they went team full 11 on 11, he was very, very good. You know, he very few offensive linemen were as effective as he was when the bullets were flying. So, what do you think about those two guards, Headley?
Yeah, we spoke to Adetomiwa, and we asked him, give us two guys or give us a couple guys that kind of gave you fits. And Curtis McClendon was on that list. You know, we kind of like, okay, we got to watch some more. We put on the tape, and yeah, he dominated in those 11-11 drills. You know, getting to the second level, not getting pass rush. People can't get past him. Had a good anchor, so we had to make an audible. You know, he wasn't on the list, and we were like, hold on. We have to make an audible.
Make something happen.
Yeah, and we got him in there in the second team, and then the other guard, Osiris. I think he's probably first-round talent. Yep. He might be the highest draft pick in the Senior Bowl.
That's possible.
Osiris Torrance, somebody on the offensive line, I think. But yeah, so there's nothing much to say about him. He's never given up a sack his whole entire career at Florida. Like you said, he has that body type against Jalen Carter in Georgia. You know, he got him sometimes Carter.
Sure.
He outpowered Carter at the same time, so he won some reps in his own right. So I like Osiris Torrance to the Steelers in the first round.
The biggest thing I think I like about Osiris, one is because he came from a non-Power 5 conference over to the Power 5 conference and was the same player. And I think he played a couple positions over there in Louisiana. But the other thing is that he's very good at dealing with secondary moves.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if you're gonna come with your toolbox, you gotta come with more than two. You know what I'm saying? Come with more than two things to the table because he's good with the counters. He's ready. He's ready to go, man. So
yeah,
and you saw it time and time again in those individual drills. Didn't see it too much in the 11 on 11s. He was just kind of doing his thing. And he can reach people, man. So he is as advertised.
Yeah, I don't think he's necessarily scheme limited. I know folks are going to peg him for a power gap scheme, but I don't think he's scheme limited. I think he has enough requisite movement ability to play in his own scheme if somebody were to go in that particular direction. And then finally, for the offense, we have the center position, the pivot position. John Michael Schmitz. People are making a very big deal of the center from Minnesota. We talked about him at length on the second half draft show in season. Right. We had already earmarked him as the best center in the country long before the Senior Bowl, but he certainly has cemented that. That there's a argument can be made that he was the best player here in Mobile this week. So certainly deserving of that first team nod. And then on the second team, Emil Ekiyor from Alabama, right? He played some guard, also played center. As a matter of fact, you had mentioned it with McClendon Curtis. We had to find a way to get McClendon Curtis on the second team. It was between Olu and Emil Ekiyor. And Ekiyor, obviously, his versatility moved him into center. And then, of course, McClendon made the team. So he also was very impressive. And I think the fact that he can obviously offer some versatility is going to help his draft stock quite a bit. Kelly, what do you think about those pivots?
But they both can move. John Smith, when you watch the tape, he can just get to one person, get to the second level, no wasted movements, fluid, lateral ability. What he showed off to me this week in the Senior Bowl was handling strength also. Yep. The anchor was good. No one really got around him or through him. Like you said, he could be a first-round pick as well, right, in my opinion. And Emil Ekiyor, an Alabama guy, the versatility along the line, had him at guard, both guard positions, center. And another guy that could get the first guy, move to the second level. I think he'd be, good in the zone scheme as well. And Alabama, if you think about Alabama, what did they do? Give the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs. They ran the ball, and he opened up a lot of holes for Gibbs in the Alabama offense.
And real quick, Schmitz is nasty too, man.
Yeah,
he was throwing folks on the ground.
Yeah, tone center.
To kind of stay up on their feet, but he was throwing guys on the ground. And real quick about Olu as well. I thought his first day was, but I think as the week went on, I think he got better. Again, he was looking like he was going to be our center for that second team, but we gotta make moves out here. So
yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
It happens. Derek comments: D-line and O-line depth looks amazing this draft. Hoping Seahawks go back to the well multiple times again. Of course, what they did with Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross. Right. Great job. They did a phenomenal job in the draft last year. Certainly, as Derek mentioned, being able to double up on that will speed up as they were already ahead of schedule.
Right.
You know, we weren't anticipating the Seahawks to make the playoffs. They make the playoffs. It didn't work out, obviously, but they are on the right track.
I got a
They,
guy
they
for
certainly
him.
have
I got a guy for him.
resources for him. Who's the guy?
I mean, I'm jumping the gun.
Go ahead.
Jump
Go ahead. Jump it.
Carl Brooks.
Carl Brooks.
Carl Brooks from Bowling Green.
Okay.
Heavy hands, nasty.
Mm-hmm.
He was effective in team. He was effective in the individual drills. He was consistent. When you watch him on tape, he is that dude. You just wonder, when they're playing in Bowling Green, excuse me, when you raise the level of competition, what does he look like?
Right.
The same player.
Yeah.
That might be a good fit. He's quick off the snap. Like, he has everything that you want from the position. 303, bro. It's a big man moving real quick, real fast.
Put on 80 pounds in college. Former wide receiver.
Peace.
Jeez. Wow. And Derek goes on to say, you guys are killing the draft content. And he loves it, man. We appreciate it, Derek. Thanks a lot, man. All right. So we're going to move on to the defense here. First team and second team defense of Couch Potato General Managers. 2023 Senior Bowl all practice teams, right? These are the guys that we felt after watching them live and then revisiting the practice film were certainly deserving of praise, and wanted to delve a little bit more into why we think they are deserving of that praise. We start with the edges on the first and second team. And of course, we have very, very explosive pass rusher, Will McDonald of Iowa State. He certainly is making believers out of us. Dylan Horton, guy that Headley has pegged previously, and certainly demonstrated why, he should be a guy that you need to consider relatively early in the draft. That's an edge out of TCU. I think he kind of does a number of things. They can play him inside line. He's a little versatile depending on your scheme. And then we go to the second team, KJ Henry, another guy that you really like. Headley, he certainly he did nothing to dispel what we think he is capable of. You know what I mean? And I know there's some volatility in terms of where people have him ranked, but I think he's a day two prospect. That's the way I view him. And then Nick Hampton, maybe a person or maybe a player that you guys aren't necessarily all that familiar with, but he certainly impressed out of the Appalachian State. He certainly caught your eye, Drew, and after watching the practice film and rewatching that live, it was one thing.
Right.
But rewatching the practice film, you kept on seeing him flash over and over again. So what was your thoughts on those four and then the edge position in general? Let's delve into that a little bit, because there are a lot of names that didn't necessarily play at the level we were anticipating.
Yeah, and we can start there, man. The name was Keon White, Georgia Tech. I think he's number 8 on Jeremiah's big board, and I just didn't see him bring it consistently. I think he's missing some pass rushing moves, secondary, third moves. He's big, he's physical, so I get it. The traits are there, a lot of talent. I didn't see him put it all together as much as these guys on this list. Will McDonald, this guy's a anime lover.
Levi from Attack on Titan.
Titan.
We had a conversation.
We had a long conversation.
We got
off the record.
We got our nerd on. It's all right. It's okay. We got it on. It was good.
And he plays like his hair is on fire. The motor, the pass rusher, the quickness. Told a spin one Darnell Wright one time. Got to the quarterback, but
Effectively the quarterback. Yes.
But and the only issue with Will McDonald is run defense,
and it is an issue.
It's a big issue.
It is an issue. I think people are willing to gloss over it. And the pass rush upside is tantalizing, man. And it may be so much so that he ends up in the first round. But he's not a complete player at this juncture. He's got a lot of work to do in terms of his run defense, for sure.
Yeah.
You can't be getting handled by tight ends. You can't.
Even like Will Mallory.
We're not talking George Kittle. We're not talking George Kittle here, right? We're not talking about guys, Mercedes Lewis, guys that are true extensions of the offensive line. We're talking about, pass catching tight ends who got the better of him in the run game on a fairly consistent basis. Like I said, it's peaks and valleys. Right. When he's screaming off that edge, he's incredible. He really is. He's very impressive as a pass rusher, but work to do as far as setting that physical edge.
Yeah, we'll get into. I'm gonna leave Nick Hampton for you, but I'm gonna get into Henry. Are you guys talking about Will McDonald?
No.
Okay, yeah, KJ Henry, Dylan Horton. I think they could have switched, but I thought both of them were consistent through the week. Dylan Horton is he's always coming. He's physical. He's always coming. He can rush from the outside, the inside, and what he's done over the last couple months, and starting from the Big 12 championship game, the playoff games, he's just been dominant.
That Texas game when they handled the Longhorns,
all those games,
yeah.
And here at Senior Bowl practices, he just consistently coming off the edge, run against the pass,
Mm-hmm.
everything. And then KJ Henry, he's smooth, man. He's a smooth guy. Got the long arms, could pass rush with a spin move, drop back in coverage. Showed up big all year long, like Clemson line with Murphy, Brisset, all of those guys. And he was a guy that was making big plays time after time.
Well, I want to see him develop or maybe use his inside pass rush move just a little
bit more. I hear that. I hear you in there.
But talking about Nick Hampton from Appalachian State, I didn't know what I was going to see when I turned on the tape, man. And by the way, real quick, I'm watching, filming, and I'm like, who is this guy with this yellow helmet? Like, who is he, bro? Like, where did he come from? And I didn't see him in the first couple of series of the drills, and I'm like, looking at Googling, Twittering, trying to figure who the heck is this guy? And then kind of dawned on me. I said, well, let me check the linebackers. Guy wearing 92 linebacker, you know what I'm saying?
James Harrison.
James Harrison. Maybe I should have spoke to him. Maybe that's what he would have told me. You know? Yo.
Got the juice. You got juice.
Listen.
Yeah.
Like, I think some of the offensive tackles weren't ready for this guy when he came over.
I agree with that.
You know, because he screaming off the edge, heavy hands, violent, fast, can close, fun watch. You know, to talk about guys that didn't do so well, flip the coin over real quick.
I don't know.
Yes.
Keon White, I know he's number 8 on DJ's, you know, board. And I know, you know, DJ's a big traits guy. I didn't see it. All right.
You saw the traits.
No. I saw the traits.
You saw the traits.
But I need the other stuff. Yes, I need right. Listen, I understand that. How do I want to say this? You can be the steak.
Here we go.
Right.
Here we go.
You can be the steak, right? But I need you to be cooked right. I need you to be seasoned right, right? And I'm missing that right now with him, right? Somebody feels like they can take that steak, they can season up, throw that salt, throw that pepper, you know what I'm saying, and cook it up right? Maybe grill it out on the grill. I don't know, but right now it's not there, right? There's some work to be done. I thought Derek Hall. I thought he would have done better.
Yeah,
thought he would have done better. Thought he would have been more consistent. Didn't see it there. He was on the ground a lot. You have Iku Leota, number 55, Auburn. That's a guy that I was looking to see a little bit more. I didn't see anything really from him. We talked about Andre Carter, who I think for us might have been one of the biggest disappointments.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that there's a lack of strength with him. There's a lack of – he just looked uncomfortable with what they were asking him to do, whether it be to drop back in coverage, whether it be to – actually, I thought I did one of the drills we did watch. He looked okay there. But he just – there was something missing about him, man. It looked different.
The functional strength, you start to question the dog.
Yeah,
you start to question the dog a little bit, but certainly, I think it was evident that the opposition was just stronger than him in many instances. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I didn't see any advanced pass rush moves. I didn't see secondary, tertiary moves or anything like that. I think he has a frame that certainly can be filled out more. He can add strength. That's something that can be improved upon. Right. But yeah, I was disappointed considering kind of what we were expecting of him. Yeah, he certainly fell short of that. I thought Byron Young from Tennessee, a guy that we really liked in season. You know, he really made some plays in season. He didn't have a secondary move. It didn't seem to be a plan. You know, you mentioned Keon White. There's no plan there. There's no you got to have a plan when you're trying to get around these tackles, when you're trying to affect the quarterback.
I'm a out athlete. Nah, bro. They here too.
Yeah.
They here too.
They're athletes as well.
There's another guy. I think he was set up to be the guy. It was Isaiah Foskey, and you know he wanted to face Dawan Jones, and you know be careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
You know that tree will fall on you, and Dawan Jones handled Isaiah Foskey in the drill.
And I thought DJ Johnson, he kind of got the Nick Hampton treatment in terms of coming over later, because I think he was dealing with the linebackers and tight ends and stuff, and they were kind of trying to figure out where to kind of, you know, linebacker, what is it that he can do, and he didn't do well, you know, in terms of coming off the edge. So I'm not sure what that's going to turn out to be for him. You know, if he's going to just go back and play the linebacker position, but he, you know, he didn't show me anything. So
yeah, there were some nice surprises. There was a little confirmation, but there were quite a few disappointments as far as those edge rushers, whether they're hand in the ground, whether they're outside linebackers in the odd man front. That there was some volatility in terms of the performances, some uneven performances again from guys that we expected, and then of course some surprises, i.e. Nick Hampton. You know what I mean? That really demonstrated what they're capable of and turned some heads. Let's move into the interior. We have Zach Pickens of South Carolina on the first team, along with the guy that you mentioned. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. You guys had an opportunity to interview him. I'm going to leave it to you from Northwestern. He was a problem the whole day, though. Number 99 for Northwestern was a problem all this week. Yeah. How do you pronounce the name, Drew? Come on. You bailed him out, man. Why you bailed him out? You bailed him out, man.
We were down there interviewing him and everything.
Drew had to go double back to ask him his name.
Hey, man.
I said, I can't. He said call him Tomawai, but he said when we go to print it, make sure the full name. I said, I got you, man. No worries. That part you don't got to worry about.
He was very impressive. And then, of course, the second team, Keanu Bennett from Wisconsin, and Carl Brooks, kind of a late audible. Thought about Redmond from Oklahoma. He was impressive, but Carl Brooks gets the nod from Bowling Green in terms of the second team defense. Tell me about your thoughts on these interior defensive linemen.
Well, Northwestern, listen, he talk about Aaron Donald, man. He's like Aaron Donald because he was asked the question, who do you model your game after, and all that. And he said it's Aaron Donald. When you think about how tall Aaron Donald is, he's not that tall.
Right.
And so, and he has the advantage in terms of leverage. You know what I mean? So, he was ridiculous, bro. Just it didn't matter the drill, didn't matter the 11 on 11, didn't matter who you really put in front of him. There's a couple guys that they went at it, got each other, but he was incredible, man. Like the burst, the power. He had moves. A lot of times interior guys don't necessarily have moves. This guy got moves. Like he is all about getting to the quarterback, being effective, being disruptive, and it was consistent with him, man. And every time he lined up, in the 11 on 11, that's the guy that I key on because I want to see it again and again and again, against different people. And it was pretty much the same for the most part.
It looked like Grady Jarrett with a little Aaron Donald edge to him. You know what I mean? In terms of how he would finish. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that natural leverage that he was playing with and his functional strength, his lower body strength, his explosiveness was really impressive. It gave interior offensive lineman fits all week.
Yeah, he was confident too, man. You could tell by speaking to him how confident he is in his game. And, probably do a little chirping out there.
Yeah.
I think Jared Patterson got a little
got into it.
And someone asked him down there, what does it feel like, you're undersized? He looked straight at him. He's like, I don't think I'm undersized. You know what I'm saying? It's how I play with the leverage. It makes me a better player, being the size that I am. And I thought he impressed. But my guy is Zach Pickens, man. I think just the violence in Zach Pickens, the physicality, the quick twitch from the snap. I thought, number 3 with that C on his helmet, he was blowing things up all week long. So he's definitely a first team guy. Keanu Bennett, who's a big physical guy on the second team. Guards the run. He could push the interior lineman back into the quarterback face. Did that consistently. And we spoke about Carl Brooks a little earlier, man. This guy, when you watch the Bowling Green tape, man, they'll line him up at the 7, at the edge out there. They put him in the 5. They put him in the 4, the 3. They put him everywhere, man. He's another guy with violent hands, quick twitch, got that quick little swim move, and always in the backfield. So we had to make that audible for Carl Brooks from Bowling Green.
Derek had a question here for you. He makes mention of the fact that, and we talked about this, the league being cyclical, a lot of light boxes. The proliferation of 11 personnel led to a ton of nickel. 2 linebackers and the nickel position, that slot corner becoming a starting position effectively. And he's wondering, as teams are starting to transition to having a lead blocker and more gap schemes and really punching the opposition in the mouth, who can help teams, the Seahawks in particular, as far as run defense at either level, at any level of the defense?
I got one. We're going to talk about him a little bit. Aubrey Miller Jr. From Jackson State. That guy is big. He's physical. He comes downhill fast. If I'm a fullback or tight end or any offensive line, I'll be scared, to come in front of him because he's like a bullet coming full force at you. So I think he's a really good stopping the run because these other linebackers, they're more passing linebackers. The Dion Henleys, the Pace, the Mapus. But Aubrey Miller is big, physical, and could play that run stopping role.
I like Winters too.
Yeah,
TCU.
instinctive. He's
Yeah.
instinctive.
All right. Speaking of linebackers, first team, Marte Mapu from Sacramento State, guy that we weren't familiar with. Okay, I think he was a bit of a late addition to the Senior Bowl, but he was very, very impressive. A bit of a tweener. He's played some defensive back. Ellie, you were watching this tape, and you kind of thought that, the further away from the line of scrimmage, the less effective he was. I think playing at the second level during these practices, I was very impressed by how he got sideline to sideline, his movement ability. I think his frame can carry some more weight, and he won't necessarily lose any of that athleticism. And there was one player in particular that I loved, where he stacked and shed that fullback and made the play in the backfield. So really like what he did this week, as well as Ivan Pace. I think if you're familiar with this draft class, you've probably heard of Ivan Pace. I think the part of his game that really stood out and continues to stand out is his ability to affect the passer. So what do you think about those two guys who formed the first team linebackers?
Yeah, I spoke to Ivan Pace, man. Cool cat, by the way. Let me say this real quick. I know y'all got it in the messenger, bro. Y'all wasn't saying that when I tweeted it, or not tweeted it when I had sent the message, bro. I said I'm watching Ivan Pace, bro, and first of all, he needs to be rushing the passer. As far as I'm concerned, he can play linebacker. I'm not denying him that, but he needs to be rushing the passer.
Right.
I said this dude is a smaller version of Micah Parsons, bro. When I watch him, bro, Parsons light, because he's coming with bad intentions. And when I was talking to him, he said, "Yo, I know I'm small, but I don't care, man. I'm playing at a different. He's playing at a different level, a different pace than everybody else. And I think it's because he knows that. Listen, I'm small. Probably been told all his life, yo, you can't do X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. And he's proven everybody wrong if that's what he's been told. Because this dude is playing. When you got guys that play at a different level, man. First of all, that permeates the team.
Sure.
Second of all, you gonna make plays that other people won't. You're gonna do things that other people can't do because of what it is that you do. And again, he can play the linebacker position. I was wondering, can he diagnose, because they had him all over the place, bro. So it's kind of like, all right, can he, is he an off the ball linebacker? Is he an edge? Like what is that he can do? And obviously we know he can come off the edge, screaming off the edge, comes with bad intentions, violent, strong hands. I wish he had a little bit more production in terms of maybe some interceptions or anything like that, but he was kind of used in, various ways. So, but he looked good. Yeah. I remember Headley coming over when he's out. He's like, "Yo, Ivan Pace, bro, number 11. He's all over the place, bro. Sideline to sideline. That's that new age linebacker that you want, man." So
impressive, to say the least.
Yeah, he was impressive. Pass coverage. I think he showed that. He didn't really show that much pass coverage in Cincinnati. They liked him attacking football, spying the quarterback, and rushing the passer, and that's what he does effectively. But I thought, his movements in the pass game was good as well.
And I think it's important to distinguish between being a good blitzer and a actual pass rusher.
Yep.
And he's the latter. I mean, obviously he can blitz, don't get me wrong, but he has pass rush moves. He actually approaches it with a plan. It's the use of his hands and his quickness. Being a smaller, shiftier player, all of that makes it very difficult, particularly when he's coming from the inside. Yep. The running backs, and we're going to have more conversations about this as we continue to feed you the Senior Bowl content. The running back struggled in pass pro, and he in particular was unblockable. Yep. He was unblockable. They had no answers for him at all during the practices. So again, very, very impressive of Ivan Pace.
Real quick, in that Cincinnati defense, what I remember watching on tape is he was the fourth rusher. Like, you have your three, and he could come from anywhere. Right. And that's kind of how they played him and used him. He was kind of the moving piece within that front seven, front four. And I kind of hated it at times. I'm like, man, if this dude was in a 4-3 edge, he would be producing over and over. But I understand, it's college and there's the scheme that has to be played. And he was a big piece of that scheme, but that's kind of how they use him. It's just interesting to see how teams see him and how he'll be used.
Mike Larry asked a question about Pace. He says, "Is Pace the guy that you turn loose on the defense all over the field?"
Yep.
That's kind of your joker.
Yep.
Yeah. There you have it, Mike.
Sideline to sideline. He's going to get there.
All right. On the second team, Dion Henley, guy that we covered, we talked about going into, wanted to see whether or not, he would play with more control, be a headsier player, certainly all the athletic tools. He makes the second team along with the aforementioned Aubrey Miller from Jackson State.
Yeah, Henley is that linebacker that's good in coverage. You know, again, like just saying in terms of he's just not. I don't know. I don't think he diagnosed things. He's just like, I see it, I'm gonna go get it, but I might be wrong, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's got to be a little bit more. We gotta see if the guard is pulling. Like we need to look at things a little bit more in terms of diagnosing plays and seeing it before we just fire our gun, right? And Aubrey Miller, excuse me, Helly talked about him earlier, coming downhill with bad intentions. He can do the thing in terms of pass coverage. We couldn't leave him off the list. You know,
Yeah, shout out Aubrey Miller, man.
Yeah.
Jackson State. He was terrific all week. It surprised me in pass coverage, but that physicality he plays with, that downhill style is just, like you said, the NFL is turning into, let's put a fullback in there, let's run, and we're gonna need guys like Aubrey Miller to fill that gap.
He don't got no problem. And I know earlier in the season, the college football season, Nick Saban, who were they playing? Tennessee.
Yep.
And they put a fullback back
there.
And he
they
said,
know what to do.
Our guys don't know what to do. They don't know what that is.
It
seems very simple, but when it's something you've never seen before, and that team is doing it in a 1 to 2 yard situation in terms of trying to score on a goal line, it's a little bit different, right? And so you got to be able to stack, shed that guy that's coming at you. And shout out to real quick, I don't want to leave him off, bro. The fullback, he's a tight end for Oklahoma. Let me get his name. 84. Braden Willis. Shout out to Braden Willis. Fullbacks are people too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I've said it before. There's a generation of football players who don't know what to do with a fullback, who don't know how to handle a lead blocker. And we saw it as we were diagnosing, as we were going through the practice film. You know, some of those larger runs, some of those big creases, alleys were created because linebackers were trying to jump around blocks and did not maintain any gap integrity, right? It's there to make the play, or you have to be the guy. You have to be the crash dummy to take on that lead blocker, whether it be the pulling guard, whether it be the fullback, whatever the case may be, the tight end, whatever the case may be. You need to stack and hopefully shed. But at least take on that block to maintain some gap integrity. And a lot of these linebackers are trying to jump around, and that creates those large rushing lanes. So we did see some of that. But to your point, these guys typically did a really good job of maintaining their ground and making sure that they were in the right gap. I thought Pace did a really good job of that. Thought Pace, even if it's trust. Warren Sapp talks about it. It's trust, right? You have to trust your teammates are going to be where they need to be, right? And there were plays where it wasn't Ivan Pace's play to make, but he needed to be in the B gap, right? He needed to be in the B gap to turn the play back into the inside where the help was. You know what I'm saying? And trust that his co-defenders would be there in order to make the play. Now, again, if you have guys jumping from the A gap to the C gap trying to get around someone, you're gonna give up the 25. You're gonna give up the explosive play. So something to keep an eye on in terms of evaluating linebackers going forward. Because again, the league is cyclical and teams are getting more to downhill. They're really employing more downhill principles, more gap principles in terms of their rushing attacks. All right, DBs. We're going to wrap it up with the DBs, man. And like I said, we have all of the receiver DBs one-on-ones on our YouTube channel. That's Couch Potato General Manager. Check it out. Subscribe to the channel. Comment. Let us know what you think of the DBs and the receivers. First team DBs. Darius Rush, corner from South Carolina. Julius Brents, a very tall, long corner from Kansas State. Sidney Brown, who I thought was phenomenal. I don't think Sidney Brown is getting enough love. Safety from Illinois. Chase Brown's twin brother. Jamie Robinson from Florida State. I like Jamie. His name is Jamie.
Jamie with the jam?
Yes. Jamie with the jam. I thought he was impressive. He finds his way onto the first team. And then Riley Moss from Iowa, another cornerback right there. A lot of ball production, good technique, good speed from Riley Moss. Again, one-on-ones, you're not always going to win every rep, but typically he was there. He was in position to at least challenge, make a play. In 11-on-11 is much better. Again, it's one-on-ones that can be kind of, exacerbate the fact that you don't have leverage and that guys have two-way goals and so on and so forth. But it's always interesting to see how guys compete. And then on the second team, we have Jacorian Bennett from Maryland, Caillou Blue Kelly from Stanford, Christopher Smith. I think he solidified his draft stock. Darrell Luter from South Alabama. We are in Mobile, home of South Alabama Jaguars. And then Anthony Johnson, long corner, long defensive back. I think he might play a little safety as well at the professional level from Virginia. So a lot of defensive backs. We want to talk about these guys. We want to talk about some guys who didn't necessarily make the first or second team. Where do we start, Headley?
Darius Rush. I thought he was the top defensive back all week long.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think it was particularly close. I like Sidney Brown what he did also, but Rush was pretty much running the receiver routes for them. He was right in the hip pocket, sticky, mirror and match. They couldn't separate from him, and that was these are drills that's made for the wide receivers to win.
Absolutely.
And Rush was right there all times. I think he allowed one deep pass over his head where he might have been guessing a little bit, but
sure.
I watched the tape at South Carolina afterwards, and I was like, yeah, this guy's the real deal, man. He kind of came out the game. Him and Cam Smith kind of rotated, but he was one of the better corners out there at South Carolina and was the best corner at the Senior Bowl. I loved him. Julius Brents, long, tall. We saw the matchup against Quentin Johnson. They kind of gave it to each other a little bit.
Yeah.
But he showed in this week that he could cover it just as good. He could run, and that length, man, it's hard to beat that length. Sidney Brown, like I said, is Chase Brown's twin brother, and he was just where he needed to be at all times.
All times.
Jumping routes, cutting underneath, getting interceptions.
Yep.
He made big plays after big plays all week long. Jamie Robinson, I love his physicality, his demeanor.
Intensity. He's intense.
They kind of compare him to Jalen Petrie right now. I like Petrie a little more, but I can see the comparison because he can play in the box, up high, anywhere. And you mentioned Riley Moss, man. I thought he's another guy like Rush in the hip pocket, mirroring receivers, and has that long speed just like Rush. So, yeah, both of those guys are good as well.
Before you jump in, Drew, Rush, first day, like what he did day 2 and 3, just completely blocked out the first day. When we rewatched the practice tape, it was like Rush was, a little shaky, to be perfectly honest with you. You know what I'm saying? But over the course of this week, my goodness. And he was guessing day 1. Day 2, there was far less guessing. And like you said, the confidence was going. But day 3, he's reading your hips. You know what I'm saying? That's how he was running the route for you. Because he's reading your hips. You're giving it away. You're tipping your pitches as receivers. And he took full advantage of that. I mean, and if I'm not mistaken, he was the fastest player. He clocked the fastest time at the Senior Bowl. So, a lot of conversation, and for good reason, about Cam Smith out of South Carolina, an underclassman at the quarterback position. But Darius Rush really opened up my eyes this week. So he was very impressive.
When you talk about Sidney Brown, I was watching his tape, man, and you said it in terms of he is where he's supposed to be. That's exactly what I have in my notes. He is where he's supposed to be, and he was the moving piece within that defense in terms of Syracuse. And the only concern I really
Illinois.
Oh, Illinois. Excuse me. Yes. The orange.
My bad.
Orange. Illinois. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
He reminds me of Antoine Winfield for the Bucks. And the only concern I really have with him is just, I need you to come downhill and just with a little bit more control. He was coming down like a crash dump.
Yeah. He's more physical than Winfield.
Right. Yes.
He's much more physical than Winfield. Winfield, I think, is a better center fielder.
Yes.
Right. And I don't know what the Bucks were doing with him this year. It didn't make any sense having him in the slot like that. But Sidney Brown comes up with bad intentions. Absolutely. Looking at this second team here, Drew, you got the Caillou Blue Kellys. You got the Darrell Luters, Anthony Johnson, Chris Smith, Jacorian Bennett. Your thoughts on those players?
So Caillou Blue Kelly was a guy I was looking to come into because he was a guy who was, his coach's son. He was in my top 5 corners when I was going through and before the season started. I'm like, this guy could be a guy, and he was out there getting roasted.
It was a rough year for him.
It wasn't good, but
it was a rough year for him.
He showed up. I think he's going to be a zone corner at the end of the day. Cover 3, cover 2, whatever it is. But he had a pick. He looked good in terms of his movement.
He got better throughout the week as well.
Attacking the football. Jacorian Bennett is a little bit more physical, more of a man corner. I think he was second in terms of
Speed.
speed.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and then who else? We got Christopher Smith or Chris Smith. We had spoken to him, interviewed him, and he just ran the ball, bro. You know, and one of the things I kind of wanted to see with him in terms of is just covering. You know,
Mhm.
covering a little bit more in terms of man-to-man covering. And,
Sure.
and he looked good.
Yeah.
You know, he's
comfortable.
he's physical at the right time in terms
Yes.
of
Yes.
covering the guy that he's covering. He's not a guy that's going to commit pass interference, anything like that. Asked him a question, said, you know, where would you rather be, man? You know, the safety, you know, he's versatile, moving all over the place. You know, he said, hey, man, listen, I just want to play ball, man. Doesn't matter whether I'm in the box or I'm you know,
Up
single
high, whatever the case
too
might
high,
be. Yeah.
whatever it is. I just
Mhm.
want to play ball, man. I said, all right, man.
Fair
Sounds
enough.
good to me.
Fair enough. He knows where he wants to
Yeah.
play, but I understand. I certainly understand it.
Correct.
Yeah.
PC.
Yeah.
PC answer.
Yeah. Tyreek Stevenson was impressive when he was healthy. He left a little bit early due to injury. I thought JL Skinner, a guy that we were really looking forward to. He had a bit of a rough week. I think by the end of it, yes, absolutely.
He couldn't play his full because you can't take guys to the ground. Nobody's
Sure.
wearing.
Sure. The
you've had-
physicality
Yeah.
was toned down a bit at that level,
Right.
right? At the third level of the defense, it was toned down a bit, but you still saw it from time to time from Skinner. It wasn't the best showcase for him because that is what he brings. He's a tone setter as far as physicality. I had hoped to see better in terms of coverage, though. The coverage was a little bit weak. Again, as Sports and Debates indicated, he certainly has the physical tools, the frame. He has an NFL body. He's what you're looking for, right? He's kind of a prototype at the safety these days. And by day 3, he certainly looked better in coverage, but there was some valleys in his play this week. So want to see that even out, but a lot to work with there as far as Skinner's concerned. Let me ask you guys some questions now.
Do it.
All right.
Q&A time?
A little Q&A.
Don't do it, bro.
Yeah. It's time.
We're going off the rails.
Yes, we're going off the rails here. This is no longer scripted.
Witching hours?
Yes. We're no longer scripted here. All right. Who was the biggest disappointment for you, Drew, this week, as far as the practices are concerned? Biggest disappointment. We're not suggesting that this player isn't going to be good at the next level. We're not going that far because it's 3 days worth of practices. But as far as what you saw, right, live, and then of course going back and watching the practice film, who just kind of left you, you know?
It's probably Jaron Hall.
Yeah,
I was so high on him.
absolutely.
I had nowhere else but go down.
Sure.
You know, coming into when listening to Jim Nagy, he said the quarterbacks, you know, are about a 4th, 5th round. You know, I'm
He said that right at the
and
top.
I'm like, well, if he said it, then
Yeah,
he
said it right
I
at
guess
the
I don't know
top.
what the hell I'm talking about, right? As a
Mhm.
1st round pick, and I, you know, I'm thinking why, you know, and we kind of
You got
saw
You
some
saw
of
it.
that.
You saw
saw
it.
some of that,
You
right?
saw it.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And talking to him because we did an interview with him, or he was talking to the media, and he was asked, you know, what are some of the concerns that people are telling you? And he says, I got to get the ball out on time. You know, and
Yes, you do, young man.
that's not something that, you know, he was doing, right?
Right.
Again, part of that is he's playing, everything is kind of unfamiliar, you know, to him in terms of, you know, the atmosphere and the players and the playbook and all those things. I think he's outstanding when he turns his back to the defense.
Play action.
Every play can't be play action.
Right.
So, yeah, he was probably the biggest disappointment for me.
What
Yeah, I
about
got
you?
one. We spoke about him a little earlier, but just where he was pegged. You know, some people had him as a 1st round pick. Andre Carter,
Mhm.
the edge from
Army.
Yeah, edge from Army. He's just lanky, man. He looks like a basketball player, really, like a power forward out there, man. He's just a little soft, man, and you just got to get more physical, hit the weight room, gain some pounds, man, and just play with some more dog, more
Sure himself
nastiness.
out there.
Be more sure of yourself because you're stepping up in competition now. You know, you did what you did at Army. You had a productive season getting after the quarterback or whatever, but, you know, at the senior bowl against the top competition, against this, you know, really good offensive line, man, you just didn't do anything out there. So, you know, he'd probably be my biggest disappointment.
All right, and we'll go to the opposite pole here and start with you, Hadley. Who was most impressive in your eyes?
Low-hanging fruit?
You can go low hanging
Nah,
fruit.
I
If you
ain't
want to
gonna-
do a cop out, you want to do a cop out. You go low hanging fruit.
No, I'm not going to do the low-hanging fruit. I'm gonna say Jaden Reed.
Okay.
He's a guy. Low hanging fruit was Michael Wilson, the
Sure.
receiver.
Sure. Absolutely.
So I'm gonna go with another receiver, Jaden Reed.
Mhm.
I just love how he runs his route. I just love how he carries himself out there. It's like he carries himself like I am the best guy out here. No one could guard me. And I think he was voted Senior Bowl
for his
best
team.
receiver
For his team.
You
Yeah.
know, the DBs.
Yes.
voted
His
him.
peers. His peers.
voted
Right.
him as the best receiver in the Senior Bowl class. And
Yep.
he showed it, man. And I'm gonna say it. He kind of reminded me. We talking about Antonio Brown earlier.
Mhm.
A
That's the
smaller
guy.
receiver
Mhm.
that's fast, that's blazing, can contested catches quick.
Twitchy.
He reminds me of AB out there.
Those late hands would remind me of Brown.
I think it's gonna be a day 2 steal in this 2023 NFL draft.
For me, I'm going to go with Jalen Duncan. When I
Mm.
think about all the offensive line, he was the one where,
Over John Michael Schmidt, son.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
Because I don't know if anyone beat him at all.
He made it look easy.
Like, and that's it right there.
He made it look easy.
There are players in the league that play their position, and you don't worry about them at all.
Sure. You go over there
And
and
it's done.
handle that. Yes.
And when
Yes.
I think about what he did, Jalen Duncan, this in those practices,
Mhm.
it reminds me of Tristan Wirfs,
Mm.
where stays healthy, and you never have to worry about that
Sure.
part of the line.
Right.
He did that, and I've said it before, and I'm gonna say it again. It was always about, can he put it all together? Because
Absolutely.
when it's all together, it is over. There's no one better in the country
Mm.
than that dude
The country.
in the country.
When it's all
When it's
working.
all together.
When
In the country.
it's all
I'm
working.
telling you.
Gotta qualify it a little bit, but when it's all working right, I don't know if I could go higher than John Michael Schmitz, which could be considered low hanging fruit, right? But Duncan was very impressive. Duncan was impressive, and again, he was one of those players that we had question marks about. Guys who had the most prove, the guys who were most intriguing, because we wanted to see if he actually was going to do it, and he did it. He checked the boxes. He absolutely checked the boxes. So I think his draft stock was very. There's a lot of polarity associated with it, right? There are people who love the traits and could see him as a late day 1 pick because of those traits, and then because of the inconsistency, he's a day 3 prospect. You know what I mean? But think about it from the perspective of like a Trevor Penning, for example. I'll juxtapose it against a guy who really rose up the ranks through his Senior Bowl performances, particularly what he does in the run game. Not the same type of player, but certainly had warts, not unlike Jalen Duncan. And I think Duncan did a better job of dispelling those issues than a Trevor Penning. Now, people love the traits of Trevor Penning, and that's ultimately the reason why. Exactly. That the intangibles that he also brings, that's ultimately why he made it into the first round. But, again, if you're on the fence regarding Jalen Duncan, if you were on the fence, I'm no longer on it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready to say first round pick.
Right.
I don't know if I'm ready to go that far, but certainly, to me, you get him in day 2, he could probably start for you right away. He could start for you right away. So really impressive stuff. It was an excellent week of practices. I know, there was some disappointments as far as guys opting out, injuries, so on and so forth. But I think that just opened the door for some other guys to really demonstrate what they're capable of. And for those who are, how do I say this? For those that feel like the Senior Bowl is just kind of like, okay, well, you weren't good enough to leave school early. You know what I'm saying? And there may be instances of that. Those guys weren't. It wouldn't have been in their best interest to leave school early, right? They needed another year of working at their craft and so on and so forth. I just have to say that NFL rosters, the majority of them are comprised of guys who were selected on day 3. That doesn't mean that the Senior Bowl doesn't have guys going day 1, day 2 as well, because they absolutely do. Jim Nagy made it a point in his opening press conference with the media, 181 first-round picks since 2000. I mentioned earlier they've had a first-round quarterback selection every year until this year. He's not anticipating one this year, since 2016.
Yeah.
So there's no shortage of talent here by any stretch of the imagination. And folks are going to need to get used to it. Now with NIL in place, they're going to be fewer and fewer players that are leaving early. Now, there'll be certain guys who just, the opportunity is great. You know, they play certain positions that don't have great shelf life. There's always those different things, family dynamics. There's a lot of different variables to account for. But people who are, or rather these players who are in decent shape from a financial standpoint, they're gonna do the old fashioned, right? I think there's a reason why CJ Stroud took quite as long as he did to decide whether or not he was going to opt in, because I'm sure there was a bag waiting for him. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's a different ball of wax. And these guys come prepared. They're usually more prepared to contribute immediately. You know, obviously you have the high end underclassmen, but in general, you know, these are the guys that outfit your roster. We're talking what, 47-48% of the draft picks last year or the year before were Senior Bowl participants. I mean, come on, man, come on. It's a must. And like I said, we touched on it very briefly in terms of Will Levis. To me, you haven't done enough. You haven't done enough to say, you know what, I'm gonna pass on that. You haven't done enough. You know what I mean? And this was ripe. The opportunity was ripe. The quarterback play, as you guys mentioned, was helter-skelter. It wasn't very good. At times, it was pretty bad. You know, you probably saw that in the one-on-ones. We're talking about no pass rush, 7 on 7, no pass rush, plenty of time, and the balls weren't great. You know what I mean? So missed opportunity in my eyes, but we'll ultimately see how all that plays out. All right. Again, guys, I want to encourage you to check out the YouTube channel. That's Couch Potato General Manager. We have a website, www.couchpotatogm.com. Scouting reports are going to be flying out of here like crazy over the next couple of months. So be sure to check that, bookmark that. For Headley, Drew, this is Juice. We'll see you next time.